Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
My name is David Esper, and I have the honor and the privilege of being the McPike ATC Director, and it's very much an honor to us to have Insight Addiction visit us at McPike. And what we thought we would do is we would do this in two sections. The first section will be to introduce our Assistant Director, Tim Jones. He's going to take you on a tour, which would be the steps that most of our patients would take as they come to treatment at McPike.
I'm going to let Dean get ahead of me here because he's got the load. And when we bring patients in, this is where they come into. We actually take patients from throughout the state. We cover a 16-county catchment area, it is called, but because of our dual recovery program, we get referrals from other ATCs throughout upstate New York. And the patient will arrive, usually they come from the bus station, and they arrive initially here where we bring them to our secretary, Wendy, and she will set them up with an information folder that gives them a patient handbook and some information about the facility. And she then notifies one of our admissions coordinators, either Debbie or Beth, that the individual has arrived for admission. And we actually don't, it's called an admission, but it's actually a screening for admission. In most cases, they do get admitted immediately after that, but occasionally there'll be a reason we have to tell them we cannot admit them that day, a medical reason, or perhaps they need some other level of care. After finishing up down here, bring the patient up to Debbie's office.
Here we come. Here we come. You're on TV. Yes, you are.
Debbie's actually in with the patient. We have an intern working with us today, Miriam. But the patient will come into one of these offices. We'll get some initial information on them, take a picture so that we can have identification for medication purposes and so on. They will sign some consents for release of information, do some very initial paperwork, and from there they go down to nursing. The admission process, if everything goes smoothly, generally takes about an hour to get the person fully admitted and get them into a bed. Now, unfortunately, because of the bus schedule, we'll often get 3 or 4 admissions come in at once. Kind of slows things down a bit. One thing we point out to the patients as they're coming in is our board with the pictures and identification of all the staff here, so that they at least know where to go if they need to know who somebody is to get an ID on them. It's our medical hallway. We would bring the person down here where they would wait in the nursing area and have an initial nursing assessment completed, which gives a good bit of the medical information as well as the addiction history. And they would get a physical done, get some lab work ordered, medications ordered. And once that is all done, we would then get the individual into a room, get them settled, and have them meet with one of our counselors to get a schedule and get them started in their actual treatment process. Once the patient is admitted, as I said, we will get them scheduled and get them started in their treatment, get them into a room. And I'll show you what a typical room looks like. We have, all rooms are multiple bed, either 2, 3, or 4 bed rooms. What they are for the size, they have, it's not quite the comforts of home, but they do have bed, wardrobe that they can lock their personal possessions in, a nightstand, and it's actually pretty comfortable. And they're busy most of the day with various classes on addiction, recovery, relapse, and do a lot of education as well about the mental health part of addiction. And the classes are held in various places throughout the building. We in fact have a brand new classroom right across the hall here. Just began using this probably about 3 months ago. And we can accommodate a little over half of our patient population in here. Our total patient population is 68 patients when we're full. And this room will accommodate up to 49. We've got it a little less than that now, but we could have up to 49 folks in here if need be. And we do various forms of education. Here we have, obviously, the counselors do lecture type teaching. We also have the capability to do videos and DVDs, as well as cable for some of the addiction programs that we will use for educational purposes in here.
Door opener.
We have both male and female patients here. The females are upstairs, all the males are downstairs, and we have 3 living areas for the males, and they are dormitory style areas. As I showed you one of the bedrooms, these are the shower rooms. That's actually the smaller of the male shower rooms, and each wing has its own bathroom. The living areas are referred to as wings. And each wing does have its own bath and shower area, including the females who have their own laundry facilities up in their area. The laundry facilities for this wing are actually over on the large male wing that we'll get to in a little bit. The male bathroom, as I mentioned, is typical standard dormitory style bathroom. We do have 2 floors, as I mentioned. The only floor where patients are housed is in the center. Above this floor is one of the staff offices, and over on the far side we have more staff offices up on the 2nd floor. The center area is all dormitory with a few staff offices. This is our large group room. It's referred to as the rotunda because of the round shape, obviously, and we can put up to 128 people in here. We use this not only for education for the patients, it's also a place where we do some of the staff education, and we hold the AA meetings in here. It's commemorating one of our very first addictions counselors here at McPike. He has passed away. And we have a plaque here commemorating some of our other counselors and nurses who have been here and have passed on. It's the Joseph A. Senti Rotunda, one of the pioneering addictions counselors in New York State. We also have a recreation program here. One of the major things that we like to teach the folks that come here is not only how to live sober, but also how to have fun sober. So we have a recreation area that I'm going to take you down to. We also have a painting staff on duty. It helps keep the place looking good. And let's take a walk down to the rec area. We have one recreation therapist who's employed full-time, and many of the counselors will assist him. And they do a wide variety of activities. In this room, we have table tennis. We also have a small kitchen area. A lot of the folks that come in enjoy getting back to doing things they have not done in a long time because of their addiction. And they have baking groups here. We have the summertime, we have picnics that the patients will actually help to prepare food for. We have table tennis tournaments. In the other large room here, we have more activities. A rec therapist and a former rec therapist who has since moved on to a different job designed the micro golf course. And then we also have a variety of exercise equipment. A lot of our folks, when they come in here, like to start getting themselves back into shape physically as well as mentally, and they spend a lot of time down here. And then we have a smaller room in here where we have a couple of dartboards that get a good bit of use. And our rec staff also does outside activities. We have softball games throughout the summer. They will take trips, what he refers to as nature trips, up to the Black River area. They do a lot of trips to the art museum here in the city.
Hi, my name's Dean. I'm an alcoholic and an addict, and this is Inside Addiction. Today we came back to where it all began for me at McPike ATC in Utica, New York. I want to introduce my guest today, the Executive Director of McPike, David Esper. David, thanks for joining us.
It's an honor to be here with you.
I remember when I came here, I sat in the counselor's office, and Mary Rose was my counselor here. And I sat in there, and she basically told me, are you willing to go to any lengths? And it wasn't a matter of for your family, for your car, for your house. It was, are you willing to go to any lengths to live?
And your answer was?
My answer was, and I still tell people to this day, if Mary Rose, and I told her that day in that office, if Mary Rose told me to wear a pink dress every day for the rest of my life, and that would keep me sober and alive, I hope I look good in it. I tell people to this day that story.
Yeah, because if I remember right, you wanted to give up the drug but maintain your addicted lifestyle.
Absolutely. I fought that tooth and nail, and it wasn't even entertained at McPike. It was,
well, we probably laughed to ourselves about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you produce nice fodder for the lunchroom. But, we see this all the time, and, after a while, you don't think it's crazy. It's just part of the person and what they bring to treatment. And in a serious way, that's really what this staff is excellent at doing, at engaging somebody where they are, and with their permission, be willing to push them so that they can do something that's very difficult. I mean, this is a very difficult disease. It requires an intimate understanding and knowledge of yourself. It is primary, it is progressive, it becomes chronic, and it has all of the chronic outcomes of fatality, incarceration, and mental illness. So people come in this at different levels. You need to engage the people and try to bring them to a level that at that point is good enough for them.
It's interesting that you just said that. One of the favorite things I've ever heard is people with an addiction have the only terminal disease that they can truly decide if and when it's fatal.
Correct. because
No one else with a terminal disease can make that decision.
that's true.
What keeps you coming to work every day?
The fact that every day at McPike I see miracles happen. I see people that couldn't walk in the door with a straight line doing very well on their way out. To listen to patients tell me what a wonderful staff that we have here at McPike. It really is about the miracles, and I've found this to be since June 28th, 1979. This is going to be my 30th year anniversary of being in this field. I came into it very much by accident, but I had mentors who were people in recovery who worked in this field, who helped me, a social worker, learn what I needed to learn to become a successful then CAC and now KSAC. So it's remarkable. Look at yourself. Here's a miracle I'm sitting with. I mean, think about how you were. Think about how you are. Okay? I started in the field back in 1979 at a place called the St. Lawrence Addiction Treatment Center. And I came down here in 1999 as the assistant director after having spent 5 years there as a social worker and 15 years there as the assistant director. And in 2004, I was lucky and fortunate enough to become a director. McPike's a very special program for a multitude of reasons, but perhaps the biggest reason is the fact that we have an integrated dual recovery program with the psychiatric center.
Oh, great.
So,
So is that like a MICA program?
MICA, but point of emphasis being, as you saw from your walking tour of McPike, we need people to be psychiatrically stable.
Okay.
There's too many places that you could hurt yourself, and we do not have staffing like a mental health facility would.
Right.
But when we talk about doing co-occurring disorder treatment, we're talking about doing the same amount of treatment on the mental health side as we do on the addiction side. So we're treating both disorders at the same time. I also should say that along with the concept of being a co-occurring disorder program, we have been tobacco-free since November 15th of 2005.
Oh, wow.
And we have been addressing problem in compulsive gambling since 2006.
So that also covers a lot of the transfer addictions as well.
Yeah, OASIS, the Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services, has encouraged its providers to be treating all of the patient's addictions at the same time.
So it's not focus on one,
Right.
but if you focus on one and not the other,
Yes.
that's what they're going to fall back on.
Right. So if you come to us as a dual diagnosis person, addiction plus mental health, you're used to two parallel systems. So you'd be getting treatment for your mental health separate and apart from your addiction.
In totally different facilities.
Different facilities, different staff, different focus. So the relationship between the two is not really happening, and that's one of the strengths here. Over the life of this program, which goes back to 1996, we've been measuring for its effectiveness, and across the board we see improvement on pre and post tests in the areas of acceptance of the diagnosis of a mental illness, coping strategies, self-image, and education about your mental health issues.
Great, so you can actually see the positive results from the program.
Almost immediately, and it's always striking when we meet our patients who talk about how amazing this is to deal with both at the same time. The one item that we've seen a reduction on is the acceptance piece. We have more people now coming to McPike expecting this level of treatment, and that's the difference from the past. In the past, when we first started, we were helping people discover they had a mental illness. Now they seem to know, and they bring with it their interplay that comes into it, basically using addiction drugs to medicate your mental health systems. So it's an honor to be associated with that, and I really think that's the strongest thing that we do.
What types of people come to McPike?
We, the whole range. Our service area is roughly the Massachusetts border, Vermont border, and then out to where we are in Utica, north and south of the thruway. But we can accept deflections from other state-operated ATCs. Oasis does have 12 remaining ATCs. But we have referrals with everybody. We have everybody from the unemployed construction worker to professional people, nurses, counselors who have relapsed or got themselves addicted. But it is the whole mix, and it's a disease that does not discriminate based on education or based on the money that you make. So what we do is we're looking for our admitting criteria to fit you. So if you don't have the ability to access inpatient treatment, have an addictive disorder, and are willing to do something about it, we would be a good place to come.
How long is the program here at McPike?
If you were to be admitted today and attend every group from tomorrow forward, it would take 29 days.
And how are the groups run, time-wise, during the day? Say, what could someone expect coming to McPike?
You could expect 2 clinical activities in the morning, 2 clinical activities in the afternoon, a clinical activity that takes you into the evening time. You would have time to spend time with your peers, interact with your peers in treatment. You would have time to explore your addiction with a counselor. You would have the chance to understand the dynamics of what goes on in your life that leads you to lapse and relapse. You'll get group counseling to help clarify, for instance, the defense mechanisms you have. You'll have large psychoeducational groups to learn about elements that relate to addiction. And you would be having individual counseling to go with it.
So it's a pretty intense treatment.
Yeah, as an inpatient rehab center, you would be looking for that kind of intensity so that you would come, get yourself immersed in it, and then be able to return home with the ability to make good decisions, to know what you need to do to maintain your state of recovery and how to advance it. So we are very connected to both referral sources that send patients to us, but also referral targets, so that we can be referring these clients there for continued care.
How many people come through McPike on a year, average?
It's about 1,100 now.
Wow.
So the number has gone up. Lengths of stay are about what we had indicated. And we have some hurdles sometimes with placing people in halfway houses, so their stays are likely to be extended. If you're from, say, Albany County, Albany County is going to want you to return in your recovery to be in their halfway houses, so we work well with those facilities in that county to get you back home.
Great. What do you think are some of the biggest barriers for some people to come into treatment?
The biggest one is stigma. When you think of the word addict, when you think of the word alcoholic,
I think of, you know, the person with the brown paper bag in the alley, or the junkie in an abandoned building with a needle sticking out of their arm, and we both know that, or a crack pipe, and we both know that that's not true. I mean, nowadays the alcoholic and the addict is a police officer, your next door neighbor, a teacher, a lawyer, your family, friends, and loved ones.
However, what those people have not done is been to come out and indicate that they're a person in recovery.
Why do you think that is?
Because of the stigma, because of what people think when they hear the word alcoholic, when they hear the word addict. I think when you put the word recovering alcoholic in front of it, recovering addict. That sounds a little bit better. But I'm not really sure that society understands what it means to be a person in recovery. And I believe that the vast majority of people in recovery are there partly because of stigma. And if they're a member of 12-step groups, they're respecting their tradition of the anonymous nature of their program.
How does that get other people to come out though?
Well, to my way of thinking, until the public begins to see that this is a disease that you can recover from and that you look not like that stereotyped image, that's where we have to go. And I mean, you're disclosing on your TV show today that you were a patient at McPike. I mean, how special is this?
Absolutely.
Do you look like an alcoholic? Do you look like a drug addict? Not in this current context, no.
That's interesting, because I don't think anybody that's watching the show today could go out their front door, walk down, you know, Main Street in Utica, Main Street in Albany, Main Street in Schenectady, Troy, Syracuse, and pinpoint and pick out the alcoholics and addicts. And I think they would be surprised if they really knew who those people were.
Absolutely.
And maybe they're one of them and don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm. So
What do you think the future holds for treatment and for McPike in particular?
I think that what we're doing at McPike is where the future of treatment is, to be able to deal with both disorders at the same time.
Absolutely.
With the same points of emphasis. I think what you're going to see added to it, though, increasingly is the value of medications. And if you want to think in more of an avant-garde kind of way, might we see a vaccine that would protect people, say, from cocaine down the line? I don't know.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
People say from cocaine down the line, I don't know.
I'm glad you mentioned that. A few months back, Newsweek had an article about an addiction vaccine.
Yes.
How do you, to me, recovery and sobriety is so much more than the drug of choice and the substance. It's the way we act, our values, our morals, our spirituality.
Mm-hmm. See, it's so nice to hear you say this, Dean, because you came here and you got this.
I was a very broken. I did not have many morals when I came into these doors.
Yes, and I remember to this day having quite a conversation with you, and it's not left my head. But no matter where we go with this, there is no way that just treating the physical side of this disorder will work.
Absolutely.
Because
you're still stuck with you.
Yes, recovery has to be initially about physical health, physical morality, if you will. Not doing things to your body that will damage it, that will hurt it. Taking drugs of abuse, alcohol, cannabis, cocaine, crack, opiates, heroin, are things that will only do damage to your body. In fact, we could say that any drug that you smoke, does incredible damage to your body. So there needs to be a buy-in on this level from a group of people who've always looked to a substance to change the way they're thinking, feeling, or acting.
David, there's people watching today, if not themselves, may possibly have a substance abuse problem. Certainly we know that there's 25 million Americans addicted to alcohol and drugs. Subsequently, there's 3 family members, friends, loved ones for every one of those alcoholics and addicts. So we're talking essentially over 100 million people affected by addiction. What would you tell someone out there, first, that may see signs, and what are some signs that they may have an addiction, or a family member, a loved one, a friend of someone? What can they look for, and more importantly, what can they do? Because I know the most dangerous thing to do with someone that has an addiction is ignore it. So what would you tell the people?
If somebody is in your life who is abusing alcohol, using drugs, one of the best things that you can do is to not become a part of their addiction. So if you are the family member of somebody who's actively using, I would strongly encourage you to look in your paper and identify some Al-Anon meetings. Al-Anon meetings are self-help meetings, 12-step based, for people who have a significant other or somebody in their life who's actively using or has in the past. So at least in an Al-Anon context, you can begin to understand
that it's a disease.
Yes, and that you don't want to contribute to it, and to learn a concept which is called loving detachment. So that as it's a family member, I want to love the family member, but I want to detach completely from their addiction.
That so many people struggle with that.
So that if this is my daughter, then if she's arrested for DWI, then I don't want to bail her out. I think it would be good for her to spend at least an overnight in jail, so that they could experience the consequences of what they did. And I mean, it takes a lot to get to the point where somebody is willing to agree they have a substance abuse problem. So we don't want to hide consequences and allow that to happen. It is a difficult thing to come into. On the other hand, I would say it is very difficult to live an active addict lifestyle. You have to work pretty hard
It's
to be
hard.
an active addict. I mean, every morning you're going to be getting up with the dilemma that you got to go get money to get drugs, to get high.
Which is so interesting, because I've always thought addicts are the most creative and motivated people that I've ever met in my life. I mean, who else could not have a job,
Yes.
be unemployable,
Yeah, absolutely.
be wanted in multiple states,
There you go. I'm sure we have.
not pay their rent,
I'm sure we have.
not have a
fugitives
car.
from justice. Yes.
but be able to get high.
There you go. Because that's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
And in a rehab, I guess you kind of peel that onion out, and that's when you realize that your very core is addiction,
Yeah.
and might be addiction with mental illness. But that's the core. But we don't get to the core easy. And that's one of the things that really happens well in an inpatient rehab. We get to the core with people that are willing to go to the core.
Because it's 24 hours, 7 days a week.
You're immersed in
There's
it.
staff here
Yes.
available to speak with someone
Yeah.
if they wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Craving a drug, thinking I gotta have some heroin, yes, there's a nurse that you can talk to at 3 o'clock.
Somebody wakes up from having a drug dream.
There's a counselor here, or there's a nurse here.
David, I'm so glad we had the opportunity to sit down
It's so nice to see you
and
again.
talk. And if someone wants to get in contact with McPike, how can they do that?
You could call our admission staff. I have to get the phone number now.
We'll get that on the bottom of the screen.
Okay. So they would be they'd be calling either Debbie Donahue or Beth Baldigan.
Okay.
And thanks for technology, because I didn't have the phone number in my head. They also should be reaching out to outpatient providers in their home area.
Okay.
Outpatient. If you think about this, maybe you can try some AA meetings or some NA meetings.
Sure.
If that's not working, maybe go to some outpatient sessions with NA and or AA.
Figure out what level of care they need.
Yes, and that might be a way for people to ease into the system. So it's been a pleasure,
Thank you so much.
and it's been really an honor to have you here.
And until next time, remember, denial only works for a while. Take it one day at a time.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.